Vayigash. First of all, today's learning should be a zechus for the four shalema of Moshe Shapiro, Moshe ben Rachel. One of the, I guess, 4 or 5 people that here in this year we owe so much to. Right? You know the other few. That's my father-in-law, Zichron Livracha, my grandfather of Shimon Schwab, my secret weapon, Eshelin. First my father, so many ideas, that's by osmosis through the years. So in any case, what we're going to do today is maybe close the circle. That's what we call this class, closing the circle. Okay? So many ideas that we've been working with will come together, and we will see how they are finally pieces falling into place and giving us a structure and support and guarantee for the rest of Jewish history. Everything in Sefer Bereshis is Masa Avasimim Avanim. It's all important for the future. It's all setting the building blocks, the foundation, the frame for the future. So in our conversations about Rachel and Leah, we're now going to see the alliance form, the eternal alliance form between Rachel and Leah, not them, their children, Yehuda and Binyamin. And we're going to see how that sets us up for Galut. Remember that when we spoke about Rachel and Leah, we can go back to the previous shirim of this year's Parashas Bereshis, Sefer Bereshis set of classes. We established the idea, right? Just very quickly, because I don't want to bore everybody who's heard this before and repeat it, but you know this, right? Leah is what? You tell me. Leah represents System 1. What do we mean by that? When is that? What period of Jewish history? The first period. The first period is, which we call System 1, is characterized by what type of experiences? We had open miracles, we had prophecy, we had a Beis HaMikdash eventually, we had demonstrable proofs of God's presence among us, and it was compared to what phase in a person's development? Childhood, where the parents are directly involved and it's clear to see their hand. There's no behind the scenes. The parent is in, there is nothing, hiding the fact that they are organizing our life, directing us, interfering, open miracles. We call them open miracles. There's no curtain dividing in front of the stage and behind the scenes. It's all open. We call this Gila Shechina. You could point to it like they did on the Yam, Zeh, Keli, this is my God. And that the kavod of Hashem's presence among the Jewish people was, again, obvious. The Beis HaMikdash, prophets, the Kohanim, the Leviim, Malchus, Beis David, the whole thing. Who gave us all that? That was Leah. But just like in Leah's real life, so too in Jewish history. Did we appreciate all of those Leah qualities? No, of course not. As she herself personally in her life was not fully appreciated by Yaakov. Now, why is that the case? Why is Leah the first to enter the scene as the wife of the Jewish people, but never really connected to? Yaakov doesn't bond with her. Rather, he has a other wife that he's very connected to, whose name is Rachel. And Rachel, right, is the ikar, the essence. All right? And what does Rachel represent? System 2, or which period of Jewish history? Galus. Now, we're going to talk about Galus today, a lot about that. Now, that means that suddenly a curtain is drawn across a stage, and what used to be obvious is still there. Nothing has changed, but you can't see it. So you start doubting that it's there. And you start thinking other circumstances are leading to what I'm experiencing. Other forces are causing, whatever's happening. And you just forget. You can't see it, so you lose sight of it. And you forget that behind the scenes, everything's going on. System 1 is in play. In other words, Hashem is there guiding and watching. but you're living in what we call system 2, which is where we look at the world in front of us, what's physical and natural and visible to our eyes, and we draw conclusions based on just the limited amount that we can now see, and we attribute cause and effect to what we see and not to what's behind the scenes, right? And we make a lot of mistakes, and we panic, and we start creating solutions for ourselves based on the fact that we feel that we're alone, and this is the cause and this is the effect, I better do this, I better do that. Forgetting to rely on the fact that all we have to do is what's best and what's right, and the hand behind the scenes will be moving things around for us, right? We forget all that. We go into a panic, a historical era of essentially feeling alone, which leads a person to feel lonely. Alone leads to fear, right? Fear. And fear, as we spoke about, leads us to make all kinds of wrong decisions. Mostly what we do is we look around, we feel alone, we feel afraid, and we start to try to figure out how am I gonna set myself up here? How am I going to secure my existence here? How am I gonna avoid all the pitfalls? So we look at nature, we look at other people, and we said this in the past, we start looking at everyone as something I can use. We instrumentalize, even Hashem. I need rain, okay, I'll do this mitzvah, you give me rain. We start making deals with God, making deals with other people. If they don't cooperate, then they're a threat to us. All this starts happening. Sinas chinam, all that stuff. And this is the unfortunate state of Galut, but yet this is called the Iker. This is the essential phase, this is Rachel, because this period where Hashem is not exposed, where Hashem is hidden, that's the period where the Jewish people, through trial and error, through time, have to muster up the emunah that not to panic, not to feel alone, not to start making all kinds of, deals with everybody and using everybody and feeling, as that everybody is either, like we said, an instrument or an opponent or a threat, but that we can operate with trust that Hashem is still there with us and live by the rules of the Torah, which are D'rachecha darchei noam, pleasant and sweet, and about chesed, and dal mekaschos, and honesty, and love, and forgiveness, and all those things, and we said that till this day the Jewish people have deeply imbibed that message, that there's a hand behind the scenes, and therefore not everybody is a threat to us, and that is why the Jewish people today are always caring about other people all the time, always trying to help, they're all over the world. Tikkun olam, people, we don't see the world as a threat because we know really Hashem is providing for us. It's very Jewish. So this is the Iker. However, Leah, we said, has to come in first because that's the chidduch. First you got to know what the ideal is, then you got to achieve, and then you don't appreciate it like a child. And then you have to work for it on your own, and then you finally get it back. Rachel dies, and that means, and she's buried praying that in a place where she can pray that the Jewish people will come back to her. So it means eventually we'll come back out of the Galut to Leah. Now, after Rachel dies, it's Leah and Yisrael. His name is changed. Rachel doesn't just die. It's very interesting. Tanya pointed this out to me. Shout out for Tanya. Her nursemaid, the one who nursed her, dies and is buried just in the place where his name is changed to Yisrael. In other words, that whole period of Rachel and being sustained, and being sustained by our emunah in Hashem, that all comes to an end, and that dies, when Rachel dies, and then Leah, the Jewish people move on with Leah. We come back to Eretz Yisrael in the end of times and go back to Kahuna and Malchus and all that stuff, and now it's Yisrael. Yisrael is the Jewish people in finally achieving the status that we should have as a good example, a role model, a leader among the world, not as Yaakov and Akev, something to be trampled upon, as we always are. Despite the fact that sometimes we have high hopes that things are changing, the events of the last couple of weeks prove that nothing ever changes, right? You could help them. You could do Tikkun Olam, be in Senegal, training them how to farm, helping their agricultural system, being a blessing and irrelevant. This is it. We are to be trampled upon. So, but that will change. Now, we are looking at the end of the Sefer. Okay, we're going to be thinking about, historically, how we're going to make it through this big Galut, in this Rachel period, in this period where we don't see Hashem. But we had a period that we did, right? And remember we talked a lot about Greece and all that. We don't want to forget the sun, just because now it's twilight and going into darkness. There was a sun, there was System 1, there was the first era, there was Giloi Shechina. How are we going to hold it with us through the Galut? How are we going to keep Leah with us through the period of Rachel? Does this make sense so far? Okay, this parsha explains it. Okay? So, what happens here is they're going to, you know the story. Yosef says, don't come back unless you bring Binyamin. My kids would say his brother, but. So, Yaakov doesn't want to let Binyamin go. So, who stands up and says, all right, we have no choice. I promise you, entrust Binyamin to me, and I guarantee you to protect him with my life, to exchange my life for his life if necessary. Who was that? Okay, so let's look at the psukim. Now, these words are, they're words that we find again and again in Tanakh. They're deeply laden with meaning, and this is what gives us the guarantee. This is our promise. And that's why we are all still here today. These words, okay? Yehuda says, Anochi ervenu. What is the shorish of the word ervenu? Okay, erev, yes, evening, okay, we're going into evening. But what is, twilight, right, history, but what is arev also? Kol Yisrael arevim zelda, responsibility. Bonded in responsibility. So he says, Anochi ervenu, I take responsibility for him. It wasn't just at this moment, this lasted through history, as we'll see. Miyadi tivakshenu. If you want to find Binyamin, ask me. You can demand him from my hand. I'm responsible for him. Okay? Imlo haviyosef elecha, and if I do not bring him back to you, and Yehuda is not just talking to Yaakov here. Who's talking to who? Right, in the big picture. Leah, Bnei Leah, Yehuda, the Tkufa, System 1 is talking to history and saying, if I will bring him back. You can trust I will bring them back. Binyamin's going into his dangerous period, right, which they thought was a dangerous period, right? And Yehuda is saying, I will bring him back. Imlo haviyosef elecha, if I do not bring him back to you, v'hisigativ lefanecha, and stand him before you, lefanecha chatasi lecha kol hayamim, then I have sinned before you for all my days. In other words, this is it. This is the defining moment. I stand and fall on one guarantee. I will protect Binyamin and I will bring him back to you. Yehuda is telling that to Yaakov, okay, Binyamin, Rachel, the Galut, okay, he will be safe. And he will be part of the family. He will not be lost. The Jews will not be lost in Galut. They will be retained, and eventually, when we go from Yaakov to Yisrael, there is a guarantee that the Jewish people will evolve to become Yisrael, that nation that we were meant to be, despite the hardships of Galut. Now, okay, a little later, he stands up in front of Yosef, and he makes his great speech, insisting that there's no way he will ever leave Binyamin here with this evil king who's trying to hurt them. And his explanation is, okay, that the reason I have to bring him back, okay, now if I come to your servant, my father, and the boy is not with us, he's telling him, if I come back to Yaakov, Bahanar einenu itanu, and this boy is not with us, it's not a possibility. I can't allow such a thing to happen because nafsho kshura b'nafsho. His soul is tied up with his soul. They're one. Yaakov and Binyamin go together, and there's no way to separate them. So I have to return them. Okay? And then he later says to Yosef, Ki avdecha, he's talking about himself, your servant me. Arav es hanar, me'im avi. I took responsibility. I pledged responsibility for this lad to my father. And I told him, if I do not bring him back to you, then that's it. I am condemned forever. This is my sole responsibility. And then he says, I will, look at the next pasuk 33, take me instead in place of him. Let me sit in prison here. I will take his place. He has to be safe. So this is the first time we see a guarantee that Yehuda is going to protect Binyamin. As we said, this is our guarantee that the elements of Leah that are within us, our memory, the first 1,000 years of Jewish history, all the Sifrei Tanakh, that is going to guarantee our safety through the dark period, and it will be done. And if Yehuda can't do that, if that can't be accomplished, then Binyamin is lost, Bnei Rachel are lost, Am Yisrael is lost in the Galut, then that's the ultimate sin. So this responsibility is on Bnei Leah. Now, skip forward. Okay, skip forward from this. They go to Mitzrayim. They come out of Mitzrayim 210 years later. They come to Eretz Yisrael. They spend 400 years with the Shoftim. It's the beginning of the era of the kings, Shaul and David. Okay, Shaul and David. This is the first opportunity for Yehuda, David, really to show leadership. He's still young. And it's also an opportunity right here. We're still in a phase where the children of Rachel have some leadership qualities, because you'll see also, we're not going to digress into this, but preparing for the Malchus of David is a responsibility of Bnei Rachel, right? And also you see that preparing Eretz Yisrael, taking it away from the seven nations, preparing it to be a place where there could be Malchus based David is a responsibility of Bnei Rachel. So you have, for example, Kalev and Yoshua, okay, who are a team of Yehuda. Kalev is from Yehuda and Yoshua is from Rachel. And they work together, and they're preparing the land for eventually establishing the kingdom. Now, look what happens here.
Could you just repeat preparing for the Malchus of David is the responsibility of which?
Of Rachel. In other words, Rachel, that's right. And all the children of Rachel, you know this, we talked about this, they're always the leaders in Galut. Okay, now, this is what's happening. Shaul has been anointed the king of Israel, okay, of the Jewish people of the tribes. And his job is to consolidate them. And his main job is to defend them from the Plishtim, okay? To defend them from the Plishtim. Now, you have to know a little bit about the history of Shaul. He was a brave hero. When the Aron, in the time of Eli, the last of the Shoftim, there was a war with the Plishtim. And they thought it was a good idea to take the Aron out to the battlefield to protect the Jewish people, which was a bad idea. And they took the Aron, and the Aron got captured by the Plishtim. And this was obviously a horror. So there was one person who was brave and courageous and smart, and he figured out a way to get himself into the Plishti camp and bring back what was inside the Aron, leave the Aron there, but he stole what was in the Aron, the Shivrei Luchos, and brought it back. He was this huge hero, okay? Now the Plishtim had a vendetta on him. He was also very tall, we're told in Navi, okay? Shechmo, Lamala, he was taller, but head and shoulders above the whole nation. Now he's the king. And Goliath is threatening them, the great giant Goliath. Now between these two episodes, okay, Shaul was asked to kill Amalek, which is always the job of Bnei Rachel. Does anybody know the relationship between Esav, okay, which Amalek comes from, and the children of Rachel? We've done it in the past.
Yaakov didn't have the money which
If you go back to,
he had to deter himself to Yaakov in order to get something.
but if you go back to earlier, there's a Rashi. If you go back to Vayetze, and the stories of when Yaakov went to Lavan and he married Rachel and Leah. If you look in the Psukim, when Yosef was born, just when Yosef was born, Yaakov said, "Now I'm going to go back." Where he was always afraid to go back because Esav was waiting there to attack him the second he would come back. So Rashi says, Yosef was born, good, we're safe now. This is the opposition to Esau. Okay, Yosef, the children of Yosef, and it's Ephraim and Menashe, and but it's in general in Bnei Rachel. This is the opposition to Esau. Amalek comes from Esau. So Shaul is given the responsibility to kill Amalek. He doesn't fulfill the task, and Shmuel comes to him and says, your malchus is going to be taken away from you. And unbeknownst to Shaul, Shmuel goes to Yishai, to his family, and sees all the children, and he sees David. It's a whole big story. And he anoints David to be the Melech al Yisrael, but not yet. Shaul's still the king. Now that this happened, there was a transfer of the Ruach Hashem from Shaul to David. Okay, this is an important thing to talk about. Shaul, being the king, being anointed by Hashem to lead the Jewish people, was invested with something called the Ruach Hashem, the Spirit of God. I don't know what that means. It's being constantly in a state of elevated, like hashgacha, and also of like Ruach HaKodesh. But when he disappointed God, right, and his malchus was taken away, he lost this Ruach Hashem. The loss of it was so devastating. Okay, it could be, but it is not a mental illness. But you might want to compare. It's a spiritual disease. And you might want to compare it, lahavdil. Nobody is saying that this is Shaul, okay? To someone who has episodes of mania where they're bursting with energy and alive and creative and tons of enthusiasm and over-the-top ambition, and then they fall into a depression where they have no, ability to even wake up or take care of themselves or get out of bed, and the contrast between the two. Now, lahavdil, if you have Ruach HaKodesh and then it's removed, the devastation is utter. And what happens here is it changes Shaul, and he's faced with Goliath, who's very tall, who's coming to basically challenge him because he's now the enemy who stole the luchos back. He outsmarted the Plishtim. And suddenly Shaul, this great, courageous warrior, who everybody was so amazed at, okay, and so impressed with, was shaking. He was in terror. He couldn't muster up the strength to face Goliath. It was not just a terrible matzah for the Jewish people, but it was a humiliation for Shaul. Where did his courage go? What happened to him? And nobody knew the secret that his malchus had been removed, that he had lost Ruach Hashem. And he sat there unable to confront Goliath. And every day Goliath came and taunted the battle. They were all set up there for battle, this side against this side. And there was like probably an empty field in the middle where those were supposed to meet. And Goliath would say, I don't want the Plishtim and the Jews to fight each other and everybody to die. I just want to have a duel. Just a duel with one person. And everybody assumed it would be Shaul. And Shaul couldn't face it. So David's three brothers were at the war, and David hears about this, okay? And David's father, Malchus-based David, okay, Yehuda, they hear about this. Look what happens. His father says, it's time for you to go check on your brothers. See how they're doing at the battlefront. And look what he says. Take with you, V'esaseres Shmuel Aleph here, V'esaseres charitzei hachalav ha'ela tavi l'sar ha'elef. Take this food here and give it to the officer there. Give it to the captain, and ves achecha tifkod, and go see how your brothers are doing. What does tifkod mean? Hashem Pokad Yisrael, remember? Not just remember, but go see their tafkid. Es achecha tafkid. There's a tafkid here. There's a mission. The mission of your brothers. Go see how it's doing, right? Go see. Right? Ve'es achecha tivkod l'shalom ve'es arubasam tikach. And take with you their what? Arubasam. Now, there's a lot of explanations what that could be. Like whatever it is, it might be different things, it might be, arubasam is, their food, or maybe their a certain get that they used to write to the wives before they went out, whatever. But, es arubasam tikach. What does that say? Take with you your promise of arvus. The Yalkut Shimoni says here, I have it in the Hebrew, but we paraphrased it to the English. Yishai said to David, it is time to fulfill the promise of responsibility that your grandfather Yehuda promised Yaakov with regards to Binyamin. So David upheld his responsibility and killed Goliath for Shaul. Okay? Hashem said to David, just as you sacrificed for Shaul from the tribe of Binyamin, as your grandfather Yehuda did. Now look at that asterisk, okay? Go back to the first page. You see the asterisk? When Yehuda said to Yosef, I will sit in prison in my brother's place. That's what he's referring to here, okay? Just as you sacrificed for Shaul from the tribe of Binyamin, as your grandfather Yehuda did. So I will put the Beis HaMikdash in the portions of both Yehuda and Binyamin. It was on the border. So you see here that David already knows his responsibility to maintain, to protect Shaul, to protect Binyamin, to protect Rachel. Okay? And he kills Goliath on behalf of that. Binyamin does pay David back. It's a two-way street all the time. Binyamin pays back Yehuda, or let's say that here, in this case, David gets paid back not by Shaul, but by Shaul's son, Yonasan. In addition, I want to mention, I have it a little later, by the Yamsuf. There's a machlokus in the Gemara, you'll see it later, but just telling you, there's a machlokus, but the opinion is that nobody wanted to be the first to jump in. Nachshon from Yehuda jumped in first, and the entire Shevet Binyamin followed him. Now, where does Binyamin show his alliance back to Yehuda? So here's Yonasan and David. Okay? Now, you know Shaul wanted to kill David. You know that. We're not going to go into that whole story. We're learning this whole Sefer. We're learning Shmuel Aleph on Wednesdays at Jenny's house. But Shaul didn't take it well that he was losing his Ruach Hashem and his Malchus, and he saw David as a threat to him, and he was trying to kill him. So, but however, Yonasan, the son of Shaul, who's, what is it, how do you even spell Yonasan's name? It has all 3 out of 4 letters of Hashem's name, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei.
Right.
Okay? And he was the opposite of Shaul. So, Vayike chaloso l'daber el Shaul, the Nefesh Yehonasan nikshara b'nefesh David. Where else does it say that? Where is that from? Yaakov and Binyamin, nafsho kshura b'nafsho. Same language. So the Nefesh of Yehonasan is bound up with the Nefesh of David. Binyamin is completely here. Yonasan from Shaul, from Binyamin, is completely connected to David. V'yehaveyu, and he loved him. Yehonasan Kenashus, he loved himself. Okay? So when David was under threat by Shaul, okay, when you want to extrapolate this to our big story, when we are in danger of the madrega of Leah, of Emunah, of knowing Hashem is behind the scenes, of trusting in Hashem, if this is threatened, okay, who is going to protect it? Who is going to ensure that we'll be okay? That's Yonasan. And how does Yonasan do this? So he makes, look at 3, Vayichros Yonasan v'David bris. They made a pact with each other. What kind of pact was that? He loves him like he loves himself. Look at Pasuk 4. Yonasan took off his cloak and tunic he was wearing and gave them to David together with his sword, bow, and belt. This means Yonasan says, you are destined to be the king. I completely abdicate to you. Everything I do is to ensure your protection, that you will survive. Everything we do in Galus is to protect what we have, what we originally had, what's in our 24 Sifrei Tanakh, our Gilui Shechina, our connection to Hashem, our trust in the mitzvahs. Everything is sacrificed to preserve that. We don't want glory for ourselves. There's no goal in the Galus to achieve, any other independent glory other than protecting our heritage. Because our heritage is our future. And Yonasan completely abdicates to David. Okay, this is not just these two, this is a historical message. Okay? And look at Pasuk 17. And he continues to say that he loves David like he loves himself. Okay? Then I quoted here about the Yam, okay? So but basically what we have here is, at the end of Sefer Bereshis, this alliance is formed between Yehuda and Binyamin, and this is going to secure us through the ages, okay? This is going to secure us and ensure that we never lose what we had and which is ultimately our future. Once this is established, okay, now we're in part B. Now the Galut is really starting, okay? First of all, now it's time, the Yosef reveals himself. There's a lot of drama in that. We've talked about it in the past. The family realizes they're actually all together. They're really all united. They're really all safe, right? And now it's time for the rest of the family to come down, Yaakov and everybody to come down to Mitzrayim and live there because of the famine. But that really starts the Galut, right? That really starts the Galut. So what we're going to look at now is how Hashem reassures Yaakov at this moment where he's about to start the Galut. In other words, reassuring the Jewish people at the, like Hanukkah time, kind of, at the start of this long, long Galut, that will be okay. All right? So now we have the reassurance of Hashem. So turn to 46. Oh, you look in your papers, out your sheets. So, Sukkim Aleph through Dalet, and now we're going to get a little technical. So, Vayigash Yisrael, you see, look what he's called. Look what he's referred to here. Mm-hmm. It's a very, watch the switching here. Vayigash Yisrael, why is he called Yisrael? Because first, simply, the family is reunited, okay? Yosef is taking care of them, in a sense that's the sinas chinam that led to the whole thing is over. This was like a little episode of Geula here for the family, okay? He's called Yisrael. So, but look at this. Vayigash Yisrael v'chol shelo v'yahu be'era sheva v'yizvach zevachem lokei avi Yitzchak v'yomer lokim v'Yisrael. Now look what the shift is. He talks to Yisrael. Yisrael is the name of the Geula. There's a guarantee here that it's going to be a Geula, but he's just about to start the Geula. So watch this. Vayomer lokim Yisrael b'maros halayla, and that's going to be very important. There was a nocturnal vision, a vision of night. Vayomer Yaakov, sick, okay? Yaakov. Now he calls him Yaakov because he's speaking to him about what is about to happen. So the Geula is already. There's a glimpse of the Geula before the Geula starts. There's already the resolution, the reunion of Am Yisrael, right? The arvus between Yehuda and Leah and Rachel. It's already been secured. That's the end. That's the goal. That will be what we will, soon experience. And now we're going into the Geula. So, Vayomer Lokim Yisrael b'maros halayla Yaakov, Yaakov. He's talking now as Yaakov, okay? V'yomer anochi hakel elokei avicha al tira merda mitzrayma. Don't be afraid to go down. Ki l'goy gadol asimcha. I'm going to make you a great nation there. Okay, we're going to become great in the Galut. Now look at the next words. It's in your sheet. I underlined it. Anochi ered imcha. I am going down with you. Mitzrayma, to Mitzrayim. V'anochi a'alcha, and I will bring you up. And the most important words. Gam alo, and I will also come up. But Yosef Yashis Yad Aleichem, and it'll be Yosef who will close your eyes when you're finally finished. Now, what does this mean? I will go down with you, and I will bring you up, and I will also come up. What's happening here is Hashem is telling us, I am going down to Galut with you. Remember this curtain? It's everything that was behind the scenes is still there. Just you can't see it right now, but nothing's changed. I am going down to Galut with you. And I will bring you out of Galut, and only when you come out of Galut will I come out of Galut. I will bring you up, Anochi alcha gam alo, and I will come up. In other words, the only way that Hashem himself, okay, will be known again in that open, exposed way is when Am Yisrael lead the world to a recognition of the presence of Hashem in all things, despite the fact that there was a curtain and it looked like, things were different, but it wasn't. In other words, Hashem's fate is entirely tied up with our fate. Together. Hashem must bring us out of Galut because Hashem will not have, and has no other method. Hashem bound himself to Am Yisrael and has absolutely no other method to be revealed, for that curtain to be pulled away, other than through Am Yisrael. That's it. Hashem's fate is in our hands, is entangled with our fate. That is the greatest, most astonishing promise and chesed and guarantee that is imaginable. And every single day in Shmona Esrei, okay, this is the bracha that we say. We say, Umevi, the first bracha, Umevi goel lebnei b'neihem. He will bring redemption to their children's children. What are the next three words? Leman shemo bi'ahava. Now, which one is it? Either on account of his own name, he'll redeem Am Yisrael for his own sake, so that his name will be revealed. Right? There'll be big names, so everyone will see that this is Hashem saving the Jewish people. Is he doing it for himself to finally say hello? I'm here. Or is he doing it with love for Am Yisrael because of how loyal we've been through the ages? Okay. It's both. Why? Because of this. Because Hashem's name is totally entangled with Am Yisrael's name, and therefore, and that is an act of love, and therefore he will bring Am Yisrael out of Galut on account of his own name, which he tied to us out of love. That's what the bracha means. We are going to get back to that state of Gilui Shechina, of no curtain. It'll come through Am Yisrael. And that's the way Hashem will finally be known again and in his own world. Does this make sense? Mm-hmm. So, very interesting now what happens with Onkelos, okay? Every time in Chumash, okay, that Rambam points this out in Moreh Nevuchim, every time in Chumash, okay, that the Torah refers to God as coming down, okay, Ered, Onkelos explains it as to be revealed. I will be revealed. Not that Hashem will move from place to place, but I will be revealed. Meaning, Vayered Hashem, or Vayered means I will come down into your lower human consciousness, capacity to comprehend or apprehend. And for a moment, in this instance, where it says Vayered, you will grasp the way I work. So Hashem says, one place it says it is by Sodom. Vayered, I'm going to come down to see what's going on. And because Hashem was lowering himself so that a human being can comprehend Hashem's ways and how Hashem is running the world and governing the world and Hashem's justice system, he let Avraham in that moment try to appreciate, understand Hashem. And that is the reason and the only reason that Avraham was justified in questioning the way Hashem was governing the world and said, so are you going to kill a tzaddik in Russia? Say, how could Avraham argue with God? He can't. He can't say a word about what Hashem does, except if it says Ve'eri. And when Moshe said to Hashem, from the time you sent me, you haven't saved them, I'm speaking of what is going on, you've only made it worse for them. That's not because Moshe had a right to argue with Hashem. That's because Hashem said to Moshe at the snap, Ve'ered, I will come down to save them. So he said, I will let you comprehend with your lower human, limited capacity me. So it is not a rule that a human being like Avraham, like Moshe, can question and put God on trial. It's only when it says Ve'ered. And that's why Avraham didn't say a word when Hashem told him to do the Akedah, because it doesn't say Ve'ered. Okay? And just to be Melamed Zchus, the Holocaust survivor who, in his early years after the Holocaust, made a, kind of wrote a book, and it was Eli Wiesel about putting God on trial. He backed off it. He did tshuva. He took it back. He said, I don't now question how God could do this. I am devastated how we could do this to God. But there's no connection between Avraham and Moshe and the right for anyone to do this. So Onkelos says, the Ered, I will be manifest. I will be revealed. So Mor Nebuchim, okay, look, turn the next page. Keep the next 2 pages open. He says this. Let's read the Rambam here for a minute. Okay? Onkelos the Ger, who is thoroughly acquainted with the Hebrew and Chaldaic languages, made it his task to oppose the belief in God's corporeality, which means God is physical. Accordingly, any expression employed in the Torah in reference to God and in any way implying corporeality, he paraphrases in consonance with the context. See, he'll never say that Hashem came down as a literal thing. He don't think God doesn't move from place to place. So all expressions denoting any mode of motion, like Vayered, are explained by him to mean the appearance or manifestation of a certain light that had been created for the occasion, in other words, Shekhinah. Okay? Therefore, he paraphrases. Now he brings 3 quotes, which you have on the next sheet. In Shemos 19:11, when Hashem is talking about Har Sinai, he's going to come down. He says, "Vayered Hashem le'enei kol ha'am." Hashem will come down. Onkelos says, okay, look at the word I looked. Yiskali. He will be revealed, not move, but be revealed. Then he quotes another one. He quotes Shemos. Sorry, it's 19:20. It's not 16:20. 19:20. Vayered Hashem al Har Sinai. Onkelos says, "Iskali, I will be revealed." Okay. Then Rambam brings another quote from Bereshis 18:21. This is about Sodom. Erda na ve'era. Let me go down and see what's going on here. Okay? Onkelos says, Iskali, I will be revealed. However, Rambam points out, in this case, go back, turn the page before. Anochi Ered imach mitzrayma. How does Onkelos translate Ered in this case? Does not say Iskali. He says, Ana echos imach. I will go down with you. Pshat. We have to figure out why. The Rambam explains it. He says, in every case, he says, I will be manifest. Okay? Look at the bold. With the exception of the following passage, I will go down with you to Egypt, which he renders literally. A remarkable proof of this great man's talents, the excellence of his version, and the correctness of interpretation. By this version, he discloses to us an important principle as regards prophecy. Why? When it says, I will go down to Galut with you, Onkelos doesn't say, I will be revealed to you. Because that's Galut. That's Galut. Hashem is with us, but he's not revealed. The curtain is dividing the stage. And the way we know that Onkelos is translated, the cue Onkelos took to translate that there will be no revelation in Galut is because this Rambam is going to tell us it comes. Yaakov has this revelation, B'maros halayla. It was a night vision, which is different than the way Nevi'im in different cases have their visions. The narrative begins, and God spake unto Israel in the vision of the night. Okay, look at the bold. Seeing that the whole narrative is introduced as a vision of the night, Onkelos did not hesitate to translate literally the words addressed to Jacob in the nocturnal vision, and thus gave a faithful account of the occurrence. Okay, so in other words, he's saying it's not even when it says Hashem will go down. I can't even tell you that the normal translation that Hashem will be revealed. I can't even say that. Just Hashem will be down with us. We have to trust it. We have to know it. And Hashem will definitely have to bring us up because his name is tied to us. So he's stuck. Without bringing Am Yisrael out, Hashem doesn't come out of Galut. So we have a total guarantee that we will come out of Galut.
Can Hashem ever be stuck? Hashem made everything.
No,
so
no, Hashem cannot be stuck in Galut. Because, as we know, that the Galut phase is a phase that will end, and that's very nice, lead into the. Remember how the pasuk ended? I will go down with you, I will bring you up, and I will also come up. And what are the next words? And Yosef will put his hands on your eyes to lay you to rest. It'll be Rachel, okay? It'll be through Yosef, literally in his life, if that was the case. But this tkufa will come to an end. Yaakov will be laid to rest, okay? And what will emerge, Yaakov doesn't die, right? Yaakov doesn't die. We'll learn that in the future. He's the essence. But this tkufa comes to an end. And Yaakov, when this tkufa comes to an end, Yaakov morphs, right, into Yisrael. And that's when that's the phase, that's the Gilui Shechina. That is the return to Eretz Yisrael. That is the restoration of all the gifts of Leah's children. That's guaranteed. So what we're getting here is two promises here. Number one, Hashem is with us, and it's guaranteed there'll be an end to the Gullus. During the course of the Gullus, okay, among Am Yisrael will always be those individuals who will take it upon themselves as their responsibility to ensure that Am Yisrael is protected. That's Yehuda. And in the case that the highest aspirations of Am Yisrael are threatened, and our highest madrigas in Ruchnius are under threat, okay, then in return there will be people from among the Gullus, that's the Binyamin, that will come to the rescue of these great ideas. So there'll always be the Yosefs and the Yehudas, okay, and the Binyamins. Who are the Yosefs? The Yosefs are the people in Gullus who we did this already, never lost sight of the Yad Hashem, who did not live in Hester Panim, despite that they were in Gullus, who remained pure and did not sin. He did not sin with Eshes Potiphar. He was able to preserve his purity. They stay pure. They become leaders. They inspire everyone else. They don't live ever in Hester Panim. They're always aware of Hashem. Those are those individuals in Golos that we can rely on. They are the gravitational center that holds everything together. Okay. Then there are the Yehudas who go into Golos and could be lost in it. It's not their natural state, right? They could be lost in it. They make mistakes. They do tshuva, and they pick themselves up, and they take on a leadership role by virtue of knowing that they could have lost everything, and they retrieve them, they save themselves, and they inspire everybody. These are Bali Tshuva, okay? These are people who go down and up, who don't lose themselves completely, who always remember that there's a geula that they have to hold on to that's coming, that even if they willfully blind themselves to what they should be desperately trying to hold on to, and they fall, they will save themselves. These are the Bali Tshuva. These are the basic, your everyday, not every day, like my grandfather said, it's not so pasha to be a pasha to you. You're good people who are striving up, down, back, forth. You're good people who are striving. Okay? And then you have Binyamin. Okay, then you have Binyamin. And we talked about Binyamin, Yonasan, complete devotion. Okay? Complete altruism and sacrifice to make sure, the one that sacrifices themselves completely for Am Yisrael, the martyrs among us who sacrifice themselves completely for Am Yisrael. Okay, give up everything to preserve the good, the bad, the holy, the not holy. All right, you have great people like this. I was just talking to Tanya today, this Machlos family. It's an unusual situation, but there's no boundaries. Everything is devoted entirely to Am Yisrael. Different people who play those kind of roles. These are the people that ensure our survival through the Gullus. So it's all secured, okay? And the next parsha is Vayechi Yaakov. The parsha that Yaakov dies is called Vayechi Yaakov. And we will talk about that. And maybe for the Zuchos, actually, of Moshe Shapiro, let me say one thing from him right now about that. In next week's parsha, Yaakov dies, okay? He is brought back to Eretz Yisrael in a coffin. okay? Buried there. But the parsha says, Vayigash. So Moshe said, based on the Ramban, that Masa of a Siman Labanim, whatever happens to the ancestors happens to the children. He asked, what is the Masa of a Siman Labanim? Of the very last recorded story of Yaakov, the last of the Avos. The last recorded story is that he's brought back to Israel in a coffin. But the parsha is called Vayichi Yaakov. He says, in the end of days, Am Yisrael will come back to Eretz Yisrael from the Galut like dead skeletons in coffins, like corpses. The Am Yisrael will come out of the Galut like corpses, and everybody will think that they are dead and buried. And they'll come to Israel and everyone will say, they're finished. But they will not be dead at all. And that is exactly what happened. We came back from the Holocaust like corpses. And everybody said, 1948, 7 armies will attack, they'll be done in a day. They're dead. Yeah, and guess what? Yaakov Avinu Lo Mes didn't die. We did not die. And that's a Moshe, unbelievable insight. And Bezrat Hashem, Am Yisrael, we should all have the koach to know. Don't give up because we have so much, promises and emunah that we'll get through this.